Chapter 11 Encounters. During the following days, Lith made several discoveries about the changes he had undergone. His body felt lighter than ever, and all of his physical abilities were enhanced. Even his 5 senses had become sharper. There had also been cosmetic changes in his appearance. The moles on his body had visibly shrunk. His skin was smoother than after a spa treatment back on Earth. And most of the freckles around his nose and eyes had disappeared. Lith took note of all the changes, trying to understand what had happened. But he couldn't care less about the beautifying effects. Even without any moles or freckles, he would still look like a crude hillbilly. If his mother had passed anything down to him, he wasn't able to see it. Unlike his sisters, Lith had none of her beauty or grace. Alina moved like a ballerina, while he was rough and clumsy enough to feel like a caveman. Lith had deep-set eyes like his father, a high forehead and a nose a little too big to fit his looks. He wasn't ugly, but not even a little bit cute. The best he could give himself was a solid 6 out of 10. Lith's only hope for improvement was the teenage growth spurt would get rid of his thin and scrawny build. Figuring out the changes in his mana core required even more time. Lith found that his mana had undergone a qualitative change, becoming purer and denser. It allowed him to cast stronger spells and reduce the time he needed to manipulate elemental and spirit magic. It made it possible for him to achieve a faster casting speed. Through invigoration, he could now spot the presence of the tar-like material scattered throughout his body. He found it in his organs, his blood vessels, and even in his neural pathways. Whenever he used the accumulation technique, he could feel the smaller tar-like particles being pulled toward the mana core, whereas the bigger ones would fragment over time and shrink in size before actually moving. Confident in his new strength, Lith started going deeper into the woods and hunting for bigger prey. He was no longer afraid of predators. Instead of avoiding them, he started looking for them. Lith wanted his family to have enough fur to make a set of warm clothes for everyone. He was sick of being forced to wear so many layers of clothes during winter that he was unable to walk properly. Every time he went out of his house, he was forced to waddle along like a penguin. The problem was that Lith still moved through the forest, making a lot of noise, exuding enough killing intent to scare away anything that wasn't stupid or desperate enough to stand in his way. It was only thanks to the life vision spell, combined with spirit magic, that he was still able to hunt. His range with spirit magic had expanded to over 30 meters, 32.8 yards, so he could easily kill any animal that tried to escape by climbing trees or taking flight. When Lith wasn't able to catch anything, he would snag any bird that made the mistake of flying within his reach. One day, Lith was exploring a new area of the Trawn Woods, hoping to find a fur-wearing meal and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. While looking at a small mound, his life vision spotted 3 life forces hiding a few meters underground. They were not strong enough to be predators, but they were big enough to be a perfect meal. If those are rodents or other smart animals, there could be more than one exit. I have no time to waste. I'll force them out. After getting on the highest spot of the mound, he used earth magic while always keeping both eyes on the prize. Magna. The ground around him started to shake, making the burrow and the small tunnels collapse. The creatures started to panic and took the most direct route to escape from their burrow. Lith ran, following their movements from above and remaining as close so they would not escape the range of his spirit magic. 3 big fat rabbits came out from a well-hidden hole near a bush. 2 of them were still wearing snow-white fur. Lucky. Lith screamed while snapping his fingers, snapping the rabbits' necks with a 180 degrees twist. I'll keep the brown-furred one for myself and trade the other 2 pelts with Celia for a greater amount of low-quality furs. Today is really my lucky day. Lith was so used to being alone in the woods that he would always think out loud to break his feeling of isolation. He hung the rabbits on his belt by the ears and walked toward Celia's house. After a few steps, Lith heard an odd sound closing in. He had never heard it before, so he started looking around for its source. Soon he could see 2 horses in the distance, galloping in his direction. It seems I have been too loud. Fight or flight? To answer his own question, he activated life vision again. The horses were just horses. While the men were far from impressive, the one taking point was barely as strong as Celia, while the one behind him was even weaker than Raz. Lith's father. Lith forced himself to hide a cruel smile. Well, my first encounter with complete strangers in this new world. Are they good people? I bet that humans are humans everywhere. This would mean that they are awful. I can't wait to find out. Lith stood there, waiting for them to arrive. The first man was clearly a servant. He was dressed in a hunter suit made of leather of low quality, with a crest on both his chest and shoulders. He was an unshaven middle-aged man, with pitch-black short hair, mean and angry eyes sitting on a face that only a mother could love. The other one was dressed in a suit of much better quality, probably brand new. He wore the same crest on his chest, but it seemed to be made of silk and gold embroidered. He was a kid, maybe 16 years old, with a handsome face and the build of a swimsuit model. The tight-fitting leather emphasized his muscular body, moving in tune with his horse. Lith felt really pissed off, and he knew exactly why. I really hope he is as much of a jerk as he is handsome. Otherwise, not only will I be forced to start believing in Prince Charming, but I will also die of envy, he thought. Hey, kid, the servant had a rude tone of voice. What was that noise from before? Lith put on his best innocent expression, playing wolf in sheep's clothes. Good day, sir. It was just me hunting. I'm sorry if I scared you. Lith's voice sounded genuinely apologetic. He wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Where did you get those? He said. What? From a rabbit hole. They are my game. Lith smiled, keeping watch on both of them. Give them to us now. They will make a perfect muff for my mother. The handsome youth also had a beautiful voice. If you really are sorry, you should offer us proper compensation. Even a commoner like you should know the basics of decency, he said with a mocking smile. Lith dropped the act like a live grenade. Seriously? Robbing a kid in broad daylight? Don't you have any shame? Kid, the servant rebuked. Do you know who you are talking to? He is the son of Baron Raff, lord of these lands. Lith laughed out loud. Please, Trawn Woods has no owner. Except maybe Count Lark. Stop spewing nonsense just to cover your sorry ass. And besides, do you know who you are talking to? I am the Supreme Mage. See what happens when you waste your breath on commoners, Korth. The young noble took up the short bow he carried on his back, knocking an arrow. They are just too stupid. It's in their nature. He shot the arrow with perfect aim towards Lith's heart. However, Lith had kept many spells at the ready on his fingertips and had plenty of distance. With a wave of his hand, a strong gust of wind hit the arrow on the side, making it spin out of control before harmlessly hitting the ground meters away from its intended target. Despite being flabbergasted, the young noble was able to keep his cool, knocking another arrow while ordering Korth to kill the kid. Lith raised his left hand, freezing Korth in place with spirit magic, while with his right he took control of the arrow. It slipped away from the youth's fingers and then stabbed him in the eye. The youth fell from his horse, screaming in pain. To think that I even bothered giving you guys a chance to get out of here alive. Lith sighed, shaking his head. Wait, if you kill the young lord, you and whoever you love will die. Think about it, Korth said. Lith laughed again. Really? And how could they ever find out what happened here? Lith moved his left thumb. Orkai, and Korth noticed with horror that his right hand was moving against his will, unsheathing the hunting knife he carried at his belt. Wait, please. Have mercy. Don't do this. You are just a kid, he begged. When you want to kill, you kill. But when you lose, I am supposed to show mercy. The spite in his voice was palpable. Lith lowered his ring finger, bringing the knife at Korth's throat. Since you are just a servant, I'll give you a clean death. With a flick of his little finger, Lith forced Korth to cut his own throat from ear to ear. Then he approached the young noble that was still writhing in pain, doubly caring of what had just happened to his loyal servant. Us. For you. You are the kind of guy I hate the most. With one hand, Lith kept him frozen at mid-air, while he used the other to punch him non-stop. Life gave you everything. Money, beauty, a bright future. Well, and all you can do with such treasures is to screw those who are already struggling to survive. Lith hated humans more than anything. Even back on Earth, the only thing keeping his rage in check was his responsibilities towards his family. Din. The new world. There were no cameras. No GPS. Nothing. There was only power. And for once he was the one wielding it. You know, I have a very ill sister, Lith said, after venting his rage. I could never practice darkness magic on living beings because using it on animals is just plain cruel. On the other hand, just a monster with the face of a man. You will make a perfect specimen for my research. The torn woods resounded with screams for hours before death could come to claim her prize. Chapter 12. Encounters 2. As Lith was approaching Celia's house, he felt a deep sense of shame tormenting him. It's a shame to waste so much good equipment and horse meat, but I have no plausible excuse for it. Our farm could really use a couple of horses, but what if someone recognized them? Too much risk for too little reward. Destroying everything was the right thing to do. Once he had finished with his experiments, Lith used darkness magic to erase any proof of what happened and turn everything into dust. Celia was so excited to get her hands on 2 snow-white rabbits that she let slip her dire need for their pelt to fill the order of a very generous client. Respecting his master's teachings, Lith exploited the situation. Hunters don't do favors. They cut deals, he quoted, in exchange for the snow-white rabbits. Lith managed to get a full set of warm clothes of lower quality, and Celia would personally tan the remaining pelt for free. That and the 3 rabbits ready for the cooking earned him great praise from his family, except Orpal. Over time he had started taking for granted all the food that Lith brought home for granted, so his hatred and envy had returned stronger than ever. That little leech. Hunting with magic is easy. Any idiot could do it. Everything he does is a slap in my face. I never get the respect that I deserve as the firstborn, and it's all his fault. First, he flaunts his luck at hunting, then he plays martyr by asking mother and father to give the first set of fur clothes to that piece of trash Tista. What can Tista possibly do with them? Get ill with style. No. Lith did it on purpose. He knows that my stupid parents still resent me for telling the truth about that cripple. Lith only did it to make me lose face compared to him. The truth was quite different from Orpal's self-centered interpretation. Lith really loved his mother, Elena, big sister Rena, and ill sister Tista. However, Orpal was never on his mind. He healed anyone in the family without being asked to, except for Orpal. Lith didn't do it out of spite or anger, but simply because Orpal's existence was irrelevant in his eyes. Lith didn't care less if Orpal lived or died. He wouldn't do anything to harm him, but wouldn't help him either. As far as Lith was concerned, they were complete strangers, living in the same home. Lith wanted Tista to be the first to benefit from his luck, in the hopes that the warm clothes would allow her to spend more time with him and Rena during winter and maybe even get to play in the snow. Darn Lith's eyes. The image of Carl would often overlap with Tista's face. He loved them deeply, and they were both victims of a cruel fate. Lith wasn't willing to let anyone or anything, not even a congenital condition, take his loved ones away from him. He suffered at the thought of how little of life she could enjoy. To give Tista the opportunity to experience speed and the feeling of the wind on her face. Lith built for a swing her with the help of their father. Ras? It was nothing special. Just a wooden plank attached to 4 tight ropes hanging from a reversed U-shaped wooden framework with triangular standings. Yet the result was awe-inspiring for his family. Stebler, or at least they were, in the Lustria County. Raggans looked at the result of their work in admiration. It's amazing! Why the 3 wooden beams instead of just 1? Safety reasons, Lith explained while using earth magic to make the last 10 centimeters, 3.9 inches of the beam sink underground, making it impossible for the swing to be toppled by bad weather or extra vigorous movement. That way both ends are like a chair. Multiple legs means that the weight is equally distributed among them, significantly reducing the stress on each beam. Of course, now that you explained it, it's so simple. By the way, what do we call this thing? Lith was at loss for words. He had no idea what the word for the swinging movement was, and he couldn't ask that now. Air. It's a rocking chair. Damn it. Why do I always screw up with the little details? That's not a rocking chair. But it's the closest thing I could think of with my current vocabulary, he thought. Tista fell in love with his present, and the rocking chair soon became a popular pastime for the family. It got to the point that Raz had to build a couple more to avoid constant quarreling. Also, after his experiments with dark magic, Lith spent the following months trying to apply both life vision and invigoration while treating Tista's symptoms. If I can manage to achieve the same imaging quality for Tista's body that invigoration grants me for my own body, I can better understand the underlying cause of her condition. That would mean having a much better chance of finding a cure, he thought. In the blink of an eye, it was almost winter again. Lith's 5th birthday was approaching. Lith was determined to capitalize on every single day before the great cold arrived, to catch as much game he could to fill the house's storeroom to the brim. He had no idea how cold the incoming winter would be, and even if he was probably strong enough to survive a storm, he doubted that his parents would allow him to test his theory. During the last year, Lith had explored more and more of the Trawn Woods, learning how to move without alarming the animals. He had also discovered new uses for darkness magic. His newest spell, quote, Shroud, allowed him to hide his body, smell, and aura by enveloping Lith in a thin layer of dark energy, making it impossible for most animals to notice him, either by nose or instinct. But it wasn't an easy task. Even a small misstep would turn Shroud into a full-blown killing intent, making the whole woods aware of his presence. That day, Lith was raiding a new area deep in the Trawn Woods. He wanted to investigate an odd feeling that had tormented him for days. In certain areas of the woods, Lith could hear an annoying buzzing sound, and until that day, he had always ignored it. But Tane, Mene, Lith had thought that it was the call of some weird, unknown animal, but during the last few days, the noise had gotten stronger, and whatever this is, it reminds me of my desktop's uninterruptible power supply unit whenever there was a blackout. It's ear-piercing, he thought. Chess. Lith could not help but to imagine it as a desperate cry for help. He didn't understand how he got that idea, but his gut was telling him that it was something important. Ever since Lith had learned martial arts back on Earth, he had always followed his gut feeling when he had nothing to lose, and this was definitely the case. The closer he got, the louder the noise became. Lith knew he was on the right path. He was running at full speed when he heard a bone-chilling howl. Lith immediately used 2 of his life-saving spells, Shroud to conceal himself, and the air spell, Light, Feet, to float a few centimeters above the ground, making his movements noiseless. Both required a lot of concentration, but it was better to spend some mana rather than stupidly endangering himself. He remained calm and focused while he searched for the source of all that noise. Holy shit, that's a Rye, Lith thought after quickly hiding behind a huge tree. A Rye was a magical wolf beast, the apex predator of the Trawn Woods. Magical beasts were more common and weaker than monsters, but they could still easily take apart a fully armed soldier. Not many animals could turn into a magical beast. They needed to have a great talent for magic and enough time to feed off the world energy. Once an animal became a magical beast, it could use its mana to boost its physical prowess and even develop spells that employed elements they were attuned with. The Rye was almost as big as a horse, with thick fire-colored fur. Lith couldn't understand why a Rye would come so close to a human settling. Ryes were intelligent beasts that avoided unnecessary trouble. If humans avoided disturbing them, they would return the favor. Lith felt pity for its prey. After making sure he was downwind of the Rye, he cancelled both spells to save precious mana while he got a better understanding of the situation. The Rye kept howling and growling as if it was in pain. Chassis. And Lith noticed that every time the Rye's snout got close to the ground, the buzzing sound would become high-pitched and the magical wolf would whine in pain. Now more curious than afraid, Lith activated Life Vision to estimate the Rye's power. What he saw made him gasp loudly. The Rye was unbelievably strong, with a mana flow almost on par with Lith's, but the real reason for amazement was a second mana flow. That belonged to the source of the buzzing sound. It was a little stone, smaller than a thimble. What the heck? That pebble is alive. That explains everything. The noise it's emitting must have lured the Rye here, just like it did for me. Taking into account its reactions, the noise is much more annoying for the Rye than for me. I've never heard of rocks with mana flow. That thing must be a magical item. I cannot let that brute destroy it. Lith thought, throwing caution to the wind. Lith decided to take action and save the magic stone. My life force is inferior to the Rye's, but if I can avoid letting it get close, I know I can win. His mana flow is inferior to mine, and from what Celia told me, magic beasts have no offensive spells. First Lith activated Shroud again, then he started weaving his strongest spell, Plague Arrow. A bolt of dark energy flew from his joined hands, hitting the Rye from its blind spot while it was trying to crack the noisy stone with its teeth again. The screeching sound and the spell both hit at the same time, making the magical beast almost lose its footing. Plague Arrow was a spell that injected a dense mass of darkness magic in its victim, disrupting both their mana flow and their life force. Lith had charged it as much as he could, hoping to send the beast on the run. Before the Rye could turn around to search for its enemy, a stream of lightning bolts erupted from Lith's palms, hitting the magical beast with enough strength to knock it down, while increasing the distance between them. Lith cancelled Shroud for life vision. Despite the sneak attacks, the Rye was still alive and strong. Lith focused his spirit magic, using both his hands to break its neck from a distance, as he had already done countless times. The Rye wasn't stupid. As soon as it felt the ominous sensation on his neck, it contracted its muscles, reinforcing it with mana and making it harder than steel. And so much for my advantage. If only I could use fire magic, you would be already roasted to death. Could you please go away? That thing is mine. Mine, Lith thought. He conjured several ice javelins and threw them at the magical beast from multiple angles. The Rye easily dodged them all and retaliated with a powerful magical roar. Lith was only saved by the distance. It gave him the time to realize that a massive wind blast was heading his way. He stepped back at the moment of the impact, using his own wind magic to dissipate the blast. His sleeves got turned into confetti, but aside from some flesh wounds, he was fine. Fuck me sideways. Thanks a lot. Salia. Magical beasts do not have offensive spells. Sure. It seems this Rye never got the memo. The Rye charged at Lith, using its wind blasts to disrupt his rhythm. Lith did his best to keep the beast at bay, but the difference in physical prowess was overwhelming. It was only a matter of time before the Rye would hit him. Okay. If you can't win, just run. If even that fails, plan C. Fight dirty, he thought. Lith stopped running away, to try a last attack before throwing the towel. He conjured many ice javelins, but did not throw them. He left them floating in midair all around him. After a moment of hesitation, the Rye chose to ignore them and charged straight at that insolent pest. That's a good boy. Tack. Twin spell. Flash and bang. Lith's right hand produced a massive flash of light. For a moment, it was like a second sun had appeared. His left hand, instead, used wind magic to produce a noise comparable to an explosion. The Rye tumbled from pain, its eyes and ears bleeding, while Lith was unscathed. He had learned long ago that as long as they were infused with his mana, his own spells would do him no harm. He could cover himself in fire, ice, or lightning without getting a single scratch. When the Rye crashed against a tree, Lith finally used the javelins, throwing them with all the force he had. All of them hit the target, but the thick magical fur prevented them from impaling the beast, piercing only through a few centimeters of flesh. Shapstick, Lith immediately checked his enemy with life vision. The results appalling. The Rye was definitely wounded and weakened, but far from being dead. Damn it. So much effort for so little damage. If it continues like this, I am the one who is most likely to run out of steam or luck. The Rye only needs one hit to kill me. It's not worth the risk. Lith used spirit magic to recover the magic stone before running for his life. The stone was full of teeth marks. Its sharp surface prickled Lith's skin. So long. Pah! Sucker! Lith screamed at the still stunned magical beast. See you again in a few years. Let's see if you dare attack me again. Small drops of blood touched the stone, and the noise stopped. The Rye was still trying to make head or tails of what had just happened. It only wanted the damn noise to stop hurting his ears. When that fierce man-pup showed up, the Rye had tried to scare him away and to teach him a lesson, but it was the one getting schooled instead. Bah! Who cares? The Rye thought. I wanted to get rid of that stupid rock, and one way or another I got the job done. That was one feisty pup, though. I pray that he shows more consideration towards his pack than he did for me. Otherwise, once he grows up, he will be a scourge to his kin. Stupid humans and their greed bring only troubles. They are incapable even of taking care of their own. The Rye, leader of all the packs in the Trawn Woods, shrugged away the javelins before returning to its family. Chapter 13. New Solutions, New Problems. Lith kept running until he was out of the woods. He turned his head from time to time, using his life vision to check if he was being followed. There is no trace of the Rye, but better safe than sorry. I'm afraid I have pissed off that thing quite badly. It's better to give it some time to vent and search for easier prey. He was near Celia's house when he finally remembered the magical stone in his hand. Lith activated life vision, getting a good look up close. The first thing he noticed was that the rough edges on the stone had smoothed out. It did not prick his skin anymore. The surface was still rough, but now it looked like a stone marble. The buzzing sound had stopped for a while, and the magical stone's life force, despite still being at the same level, had changed significantly. Back when he saw it for the first time, its life force was like a candle about to burn out, whereas now it had become steady. Warning Celia about the magical beast took priority, so he hid the stone in a leather pouch he always carried around his neck before knocking at her door. Lith explained everything to her. He described in detail the size and power of the Rye, leaving her flabbergasted. Of course, he never mentioned the fight. Lith told her that he had fled as soon as their eyes met, and that he had only gotten away thanks to his magic. He showed her his tattered sleeves as proof. "Good gods, kid," she still refused to call him by his name. "You are really lucky. It took it easy on you. Had the Rye decided to give chase, we would not be having this conversation. Nonetheless, thanks for warning me first, instead of going straight to your parents." Celia ruffled his hair. "How did you know I came here first? Because if you didn't, your parents would have probably locked you up in your house, and one of them would have come here to warn me in your place." Lith froze up. He had just dodged a bullet, much scarier than any Rye. "You are right. It's better not to tell them, otherwise my hunting days may be over forever. Yeah. I suggest you take the rest of the morning off, make up an excuse for those sleeves, and go home." Celia walked over to the shed near her house, where she kept her game maturating. "And take these as a thank you for the heads up." She handed him a rabbit and a blinker, ready to be cooked. "I was about to go into the woods. I think I will follow my own advice instead, and continue tanning the remaining pelts. I'll go hunting in the afternoon, when it should be safer." Lith thanked her with a deep bow. He knew how precious meat was in Lutia, even for a huntress as good as Celia. Not to mention that she had just saved him from perpetual house arrests. He spent the rest of the morning trying to understand how to use the magic stone. It appeared to be feeding off Lith's mana. Not leeching it like a parasite, but more like nibbling at the mana that he naturally released. The stone would simply breathe in what Lith's body breathed out. Nothing more. Lith tried injecting mana into it, but to no avail. Then he cast elemental spells while holding the stone, to check if their strength, cast speed, or area of effect were affected in any way. All of his experiments gave no results. The stone looked just like any other. Stones do not have such a clear mana flow, and certainly they do not have any life force. Maybe this thing needs time to heal, to recharge, or something. The Rye messed it up quite badly. Let's hope it's not broken. Unless it starts harming me, I'll keep it. Maybe it is some kind of treasure, or maybe I can find something about it in one of Nana's books. I just have to be patient. The last few days of autumn passed by uneventfully until winter arrived. Having reached 5 years of age, Lith revealed a little more of his magic talents, proving to be invaluable to his family. He would wake up first and warm up the whole house with magic, even the floors. At that point, the fireplace was lit only because it was cozy, and because grouping up around the fire, especially during the stormy winter evenings, was a family tradition. Even the cooking was entrusted to Lith. Alina would prepare the meal, and Lith would cook it faster and better than a ventilated oven, keeping the soup warm for everyone during the whole meal. He could not go hunting anymore because of the bad weather. His parents had been adamant about that. Nosely still go to Celia's house to perform the chores for her. During the last year, she had become so lazy that she had become dependent on Lith for keeping her house clean and her tools sterilized. This was a way for Lith to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now he had an excuse to go fetch his private stock of meat whenever he got hungry, and Celia had to pay him for the chores. Lith would do it for free, just to get out of the house, but his parents would not agree. So Celia paid him a few copper coins to clean her house, and some more for Alina to do her laundry. Both Alina and Raz would welcome any extra income, and doing the laundry for 8 instead of 7 wasn't much of an effort, especially since Lith provided her with an endless supply of hot water. "And nice to meet you. I am Lith, Boiler Supreme." He would inwardly grumble every time. And the first weeks of winter, Lith made a very important breakthrough. He finally understood how to use Invigoration's body imaging on others. He was now able to let his mana seep into another person's body and slowly take control of their mana flow. It allowed Lith to know everything about his subject's physical condition. The only way to achieve such a result was to keep physical contact, searching for pathways that the mana could use to invade the patient's body without harming them. Lith immediately used it on Tista, and his findings were appalling. Her body was full of the tar-like substance that, for the lack of a better term, he had dubbed impurities. And the cause of that was her lungs. Barely half of Tista's lungs were made up of healthy tissue. The rest appeared to Lith like a black-brown mass that actively produced impurities. Over time, the impurities had spread throughout the healthy tissues of her lungs and windpipe. At first, the clogging only made her cough, but it didn't take long for it to progress into pneumonia. After giving it some thought, Lith was sure he had found a fix better than everything he had done before, but it was very embarrassing. Even though his real age was that of a 30-year-old man, he was still in a 5-year-old body. He found it extremely uncomfortable to talk about certain matters, especially with the women of his family. After some deep breaths to calm down, he called Reyes and Alina to ask for their help and permission. He had to dumb down the procedure quite a lot to get them to understand. I cannot cure Tista. Not yet. Yet, I discovered a way that should make her feel much better. In the best-case scenario, she could even get rid of most of her symptoms. And in the worst-case scenario? Raz asked, full of worries. At worst, she will be the same. But I need you to trust me. Contrary to his expectations, they did not make any objections, nor they asked any question. Their trust in Lith's mastery of magic was boundless, and in their eyes, he was just a 5-year-old, while Tista was barely 7. She had yet to mature in any way. For them, it was like yesterday, when they bathed together in the washtub. The first phase was the easiest. Lith would take control of Tista's mana flow and overload her body with his mana. Then, he would force the impurities to move away from her inner organs and toward the skin. She would just feel hot the whole time, as if she had a mild fever. Once most of the impurities were about to surface, Lith demanded to be blindfolded and that either Alina or Rena witness the process. Tista was just a kid, and Lith feared that over time suspicions might arise. During Earth's Middle Ages, incestuous relationships were disgustingly common, and he rejected even the idea of being thought of as a pervert. The second and last phase required Tista to be soaking in the washtub that had previously been filled by Lith with hot water and soap. He clearly remembered the stench the impurities gave off, and during winter, ventilating the house was difficult, especially in Tista's condition. Cold was her worst enemy. Then, he could finally extract the impurities by using water magic. He created and manipulated flows that massaged Tista's body all over. Lith would destroy the impurities as soon as possible with dark magic, preventing them from releasing their smell. It was a difficult process that required using water and darkness magic, all while keeping invigoration active. After the treatment, he would also use water magic to remove all the water still on her body, and then mix fire and wind magic to create a makeshift hairdryer. When it was finally over, Tista looked like she was just back from a spa, whereas Lith looked like he had just got back from mining. He was drenched in sweat and out of breath. How do you feel? Tista took several deep breaths. I never felt so good, like ever. Also, I always dreamed of having a winter bath, instead of settle for warm water-soaked towels. Thanks, lil bro, you just made 2 of my wishes come true. She tried to hug him, but he raised his arms in defense. Please. No. I'm disgusting right now. Do not ruin my hard work. I need a bath, some food, and 2 hours rest. Minimum. Both his mother and big sister nodded. Lith, dear, what was that thing with the water that you did? Alina asked. Do you mean the, damn it, I can't tell her I was imitating a hydromassage. They do not have Latin here. Nor I can call it a jacuzzi or something. Whatever, I'm too tired for more shenanigans. He thought. Water massage? Yes, that. It seemed so relaxing. Tista had fallen asleep many times during her treatment. It sure must be pleasant. Rena's words were filled with expectation. And that thing for drying her hair, could you do that again too? Alina raised the ante, making their goal more and more obvious by the second. Lith was on the verge of collapsing. He had no time to spare with niceties. Are you saying that you would like a hot water massage too? More nodding followed as Rena and Alina, their hands joined in a silent plea. But, Lith stuttered. Both of you are. He was trying to find a polite way to say, hot. Lith could still remember Alina's naked body when he was an infant, and she had aged very well. Rena was now 11. Maybe it was the countryside lifestyle, maybe it was related to the new world, but she had already begun her growth spurt, developing some curves. She was getting nice and soft in all the right places. Lith already had so many qualms about giving a water massage to his little sister, and Tista was as flat as a board. Only her long hair gave her away as a girl, instead of a boy. We are family. All of us have dreamed of being able to take a bath during winter, without catching a cold or worse. You have no idea how smelly we become, after working in the barn, surrounded by the smell of livestock and their dung. Sometimes the stench is so bad that we can't even sleep at night. Couldn't you help us too? Alina, his mother, was completely oblivious to Lith's worries and tried to play the guilt card. Lith gave up. Fine. Just let me rest a bit, and then I'll help you. But you still need to blindfold me, and I demand a witness. They both started laughing out loud. Why do you worry so much? You are just a baby, not some thug. I would like to say that I am a gentleman, but I do not know the word for it. I could say that I am a man, but that would make them laugh even harder. Stupid 5-year-old body, he thought. Well, it was the only word in his vocabulary he could resort to. Damn, this is going to be a fricking long winter. Chapter 14 Conflicts. As Lith predicted, his 5th winter was shaping to be quite interesting. Treating Tista's condition required 2 sessions per week, minimum, each one lasting around 4 hours. He needed 2 hours for the treatment itself, while the remaining time was necessary for him to bathe and recover his strength. Manipulating Tista's mana flow, while simultaneously using fire, water, and dark magic, took its toll every time. The good news was that with so much practice, he was becoming accustomed to casting and maintaining active several spells at once. Every treatment was easier than the previous one, and her symptoms were quickly improving. Tista was now able to help with the house chores and the livestock. She could even afford to take long walks outside when the weather was good. The bad news was that Lith's relationship with his brothers was now uglier than it ever was before. Whenever Tista got better, someone would reproach Orpal for his past words, and if no one did, then Tista would do. Orpal's fits of rage had really hurt her. His cruel words had shattered the image she always had of her perfect family, and of her caring big brother. Tista had been humiliated and betrayed. She was not going to forgive him that easily. Soon after hot winter baths had become available, Raz had also started to bathe often. Orpal and Trion were the only ones left out. Orpal because he could not stand the thought of having to ask for something from Lith, especially if he had to do it politely. I'm the eldest brother. I'm not supposed to beg runts for favors. I'm supposed to give orders and be respected for it. That leech has now turned even that cripple against me. I can't put Tista in her place, otherwise she will make me look like I'm the bad guy who picks on a sick little girl. Manipulative beach, he thought. Trion was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He deeply loved Tista, but he also loved and respected Orpal. Trion was the only one by his side, so he did not have the heart to betray their bond. With everyone else smelling fresh and clean, their stench stuck out like a sore thumb. Even with all their family goodwill, disgusted grimaces were impossible to avoid from time to time. The first time Tista dubbed the duo as Orpoop and Treek, she brought the house down with laughter. Orpal and Trion blamed Lith for their humiliation, but he just ignored them like he always did. Razad had made Lith a pair of snowshoes, spending more and more time with him. Raz had also started imparting him lessons about how to operate a farm and teaching him how to whittle. Lith was still very young, but knowing he was able to skin and gut his game, Raz thought there was no risk for him handling a carving knife. Orpal and Trion viewed the situation differently, though. Until then, Lith had spent most of his time with the girls, letting Raz spend all his free time with the boys. They felt wronged twice. Once because Lith was robbing them of their dad time, the second because Raz had always refused to teach them whittling before they reached the age of 8. Things got even more unpleasant for Lith after midwinter. Every time he treated Tista, he would notice that something was off. Both his mother and oldest sister had an odd look in their eyes. Often, they would open their mouth, only to close them right away, giving him the silent treatment for hours. Lith couldn't figure out the reason for their behavior, so his mind started spinning like crazy. Do they believe me to be a pervert? Have I looked at them in an inappropriate way? Maybe they are starting to suspect something. Maybe they know I am from a different world, he thought. Lith's full-blown paranoia wouldn't give him even a second of rest, preventing him from having a good night's rest. He also heard them sighing quite often. Something was definitely off. It took all the courage Lith could muster to face them and ask for the truth. The confrontation took place in the girls' room, where they were all gathered for Tista's treatment. Lith, did you really not notice any changes? Alina asked, pouting. Yes, I did. Tista is feeling much better now, right? Of course there's that. But don't you notice anything here? She waved her hand, going from Tista's head to toes. That's my sister. And, she prompted, her health is getting better, nothing is getting worse. Tista is still Tista. For the first time in all his 3 lives, Lith had the opportunity to see with his own eyes a synchronized facepalm outside internet meme gives. Raina was fuming. Really? Don't you notice that her hair is soft and silky? That it never tangles nor she gets split ends? Tista had light brown hair with shades of purple all over them. Ever since the treatment began, the color had become more vibrant. Shades of purple. This is really another world, after all. I wonder why women have them and men do not, Lith thought. Now that you mention it, yes I do. But normally I don't care for hair. I keep mine short for a reason. Rena shook her head. Don't you even notice that her skin has become smoother, with no imperfections? That she is growing taller and even more slender than her peers? Lith kept scratching his head. He knew nothing about the average girl. Also, they were simply describing the side effects of removing impurities. Why is that a problem? Aren't those all good things? This time even Tista joined the facepalm. They are envious of those things, dummy. They just want you to do the same for them. Lith was flabbergasted by such trivial demands. All those grimaces, the silent treatment, all of it for such a stupid reason. Lith dear, being attractive for a girl is a pretty big deal. For your sisters, it could mean having the possibility of choosing between merely a wealthy man or a good and wealthy man. It can affect their entire life and their happiness. That sounded right to Lith's ears. How could I have not thought of that? While for your poor mother, it means that she can finally make all those pompous, high and mighty neighbors of hers, who keep bragging about having so much more money than me, and flaunting all of their pricey beauty creams, kick themselves out of envy. That sounded right to Lith's ears too. He accepted it with a sigh, and his life finally returned to normal. He had to spend at least 3 afternoons a week for all the treatments, but it was worth it. All that practice made his mana core grow steadily and fast. His control of mana and casting speed improved by leaps and bounds. Right before the end of winter, he was forced to take on a new customer. With the weather improving, the neighboring families started meeting off, sometimes for a visit. More often they would simply bump into each other while trading goods at the village. And that was driving Raz crazy. Lith, you have to help me. His plea was desperate. Your mother looks at least 10 years younger, and I am starting to look more like her father instead of her husband. People keep murmuring about how she was unfortunate to marry me, that she could have gotten so much better. Please do your thing on me too. Lith had heard the rumors. They were mean and petty. Such people deserved to be faced head-on. He would not allow anyone to speak ill of his dad. Fine, but only with some conditions. The same I'm asking from Mom. 1. Secrecy. Nobody must ever know about it, except for you and me. Think of all the bad people that could want to exploit me. Raz nodded. 2nd, you will never talk about it with Orpal or Tryon, nor ask me to do it for them. I don't care if they fall in love or want to marry. They made it pretty clear what they feel towards me and Tista. I will not endanger my safety for them. Take it or leave it. Waraz wanted to object and remind Lith that they were family too. However, their behavior had only gotten worse after being forced to spend so much time together during winter. Raza had to scold them multiple times just to make them behave properly. I can only hope that when they grow up, my sons will be able to mend their relationship. I can't force them to get along, Raz thought. And so, he accepted. A few weeks later, Lith was headed to Celia's house for the usual cleaning, before going hunting. The dawn's light made the world around him look like it was out of a fairy tale. The thin layer of snow was immaculate, reflecting the orange light over the weeds and trees along the way. His surroundings were completely silent. The world was still and at peace. At the next clearing, Lith took the magic stone out of his pouch, observing it in the morning light. During the winter months, the magic stone had mended most of the teeth marks. Both its life force and mana flow had tremendously improved, but it was still useless as the day Lith found it. Just my luck, he sighed. I risked my life facing that rye for nothing. Let's hope I can find something in Nana's books. Otherwise my only option is to find someone willing to buy it. Lith was really impatient to start his apprenticeship. It meant finally being able to study magic from books instead of being self-taught. Also, as an apprentice healer, he would get to practice magic and be paid for it. He would also gain the village's recognition and respect. So many birds with just one stone. After putting the magic stone back into the pouch, Lith arrived at his destination and opened the door. That day, Celia was out of town selling her merchandise, so she had left the door open for him. It didn't take him much time to clean everything and leave. As soon as he walked out of the house, he got hit in the head with a wooden stick. Lith's eyes went blurry. He felt someone pushing him back inside, making him fall to the ground with a kick to the stomach. Look who's here, the little leech. Lith recognized that voice. He was one of Orpal's friends. 4 boys quickly surrounded Lith, kicking him while he was still down, while a 5th closed the door, after checking that no one noticed them. You little arrogant piece of shit. Orpal told us all about you. How you humiliate him every day. How you even dared to steal his food. Yeah, another one yelled. He's your big brother. It should be him getting the best part of the game, not you, little ungrateful runt. Less yelling and more kicking, Trant. Remember Orpal's words, if Leech gets the chance to use his magic, we are finished. Despite how Lith curled up, desperately trying to shield his head and stomach, another kick grazed his face, making one of his baby teeth fall out. I know what to do. Trant moved forward, gripping Lith's hands with enough strength to crush them. Let's see how he does magic without hands. By coming that close, Trant had forced his friends to stop kicking, and a moment was all that Lith needed. He released all the lightning he could muster, shocking Trant. Unfortunately, before he could do anything else, the wooden stick hit him in the head again, making him collapse. You idiot! How dare you hurt your seniors? You deserve to die. The beating resumed, this time with no hint of mercy or any attempt to hold back. Lith started coughing out blood and teeth. The four had him surrounded. Lith tried multiple times to roll out of the encirclement, but he would be forced back to the middle every single time. Lots of feelings were raging through his mind, while his body was burning with pain. The spite for his brother's betrayal, the rage of being assaulted by boys who were twice his age and size. But most of all, he felt helpless and afraid of death. Damn magic. What use are you if I don't have the time to concentrate? Stupid stone. I kept you hanging from my neck for months. Do something. Help me. Somebody, anybody, help me. All his silent pleas went unfulfilled. While his conscience was fading, Lith started cursing himself for his weakness and helplessness. Magic, martial arts, all that careful preparation, useless. Oddly, his last thought was not for his family or revenge, but for his last opponent. If only I was as strong as a rye. He stopped my spirit magic so easily by... His survival instinct kicked in, his mind and body acting in unison. By infusing himself with mana. I can do that too. It's the same principle behind life and fire vision, he thought. With each breath he called upon the elemental energy, but instead of wasting time giving it a form, Lith let it merge directly with his mana core and infused himself with earth magic. His whole body started to harden the pain, to get duller and duller. Lith also infused himself with light magic. It accelerated his healing and prevented him from losing consciousness. Soon he was able to ignore the kicks and spring back up with a kip-up. What is earth? It's just a mix of minerals and organic matter, the same as my body. I can be immovable like a mountain. With that thought, he further hardened his head, before driving his head up from below into the chin of the assailant in front of him. Before the remaining three could recover from the surprise and resume the beating, Lith raised his guard. His left arm forward for blocking, while his right arm was ready to strike. Orpal's friends were scared. After Lith knocked down their leader with the head strike, the only thing on their mind was to prevent him from using magic, so they rushed forward to not give him time to recover. The closest assailant tried to punch Lith in the face, to disrupt any casting he could attempt. 60% of the human body is made of water. I can be formless like water. Lith's left arm, imbued with water magic, coiled around his opponent's right arm like a snake. The body burns calories to produce heat and energy. I can be destructive like fire. Fire magic burned through his muscles, granting Lith short bursts of explosive strength. By flexing his left arm, Lith broke the immobilized limb in 3 points. The boy's elbow, ulna, and radius shattered, while Lith's right fist hit the opponent on the nose, pulverizing it. The pain made the boy faint, his nose bleeding profusely. The remaining two fell into a panic and tried to run away. Nerve synapses, all the information and orders in the body, are transmitted via electrical impulse. I can be as fast as lightning. Lith imbued his whole body with air magic, becoming fast enough to blink in front of them, punching both in the gonads at the same time. All of his opponents were down, sobbing in pain, or fainted. Lith spit out a mouthful of blood, while contemplating the results of his last experiment. It seems that this new magic puts too much strain on my body. Maybe I'm too young, or maybe I took too much damage, whatever. I have all the time in the world now. I need to decide what to do with you bastards, Lith said while using light magic to heal his internal injuries. It may take a while, but you'll get my undivided attention. Your stay. Lith sat on the couch with his left hand on his chest, using healing magic on himself. His right hand was open in front of him, releasing 5 streams of lightning that enveloped the 5 boys like root tendrils, making them scream in agony. Chapter 15 Breakups. The original plan was to kill them all, erase the evidence, and then make sure Orpal would have an unfortunate accident, as Lith calmed down. However, he realized that it was an idiotic plan, full of holes. If 5 young men suddenly disappear in a sleepy village like Lutia, It is bound to raise a commotion. Also, Orpal knows they were here. Once he discovers they are nowhere to be found, he might come too close to the truth for comfort. I don't want to give him any kind of leverage over me. There is also the possibility that these blockheads shared their plans with their siblings. Killing them is the wrong answer. Too many things can go spiraling out of my control. Worst of all, if I make Orpal disappear too, the whole family would worry and grieve for him. The last thing I want is to turn him into a martyr. I want him to pay, to suffer for the rest of his miserable life. Lith thought. While in deep thought, Lith would release streams of lightning from his right hand, keep the spell active for a couple of seconds, then give his assailants a few moments of relief before zapping them again. They had already lost control of their bladder and bowels multiple times. When they were not writhing in pain, they were sobbing and begging for mercy. I can't let this trash off easily either. Lith made sure that there was a pause between each shock. The short interval without pain would leave the boys thinking that their torture was finally over, only to have Lith renew the shocks. He also tried to keep the time between shocks long enough to make sure that the boys' bodies would never adapt to the pain, making sure each shock hurt just as much as the first. Punishing them is not enough. I want to break them, he thought. There were too many variables, and Lith was sick of running around in circles. He decided to resort to a modified version of his very first plan, back on Earth. Those guys were trash too. I wonder how they reacted after my death, after the photos were leaked all over the internet with their names tagged. Lith had a cruel smile at the thought of his revenge, backstabbing them after so many years. With a final spell, Lith made the 5 youths lose consciousness and arranged their bodies with spirit magic. I must keep both spirit and fusion magic a secret, so I need to stage a scenario from which I could have emerged victorious with just normal magic. An encirclement is too much for a 5-year-old. I'll fan them out, he thought. He put the wooden stick back in the hand of its owner, making sure it was smeared with blood. Lith was arranging the final details, when he heard someone calling his name from afar. Damn, I spent too much time thinking. My family must have sent someone looking for me. This screws up a good part of my plan. I must play it by ear and hope they did not send Orpal, or it's going to get ugly, he thought. Lith looked through a window, spotting Alina approaching Celia's house with long and fast strides. Good. It's Mom. Raina or Dad would have been better, but I can work with this. When she got close enough, Lith responded to her call with a moan, and slowly opening the door while begging for help. Alina started running with all her strength. Once she walked through the door, what she saw was bone-chilling. There was blood everywhere, teeth on the ground, and Lith was almost unrecognizable. He was losing blood from multiple injuries. His face was swollen to the point that his eyes were barely visible amidst all the black and blue. Lith was holding his left arm like it was hurt, and every time he opened his mouth to talk, Alina could see the bloody ruin it had become. Mom. Thank the gods it's you. Lith's voice was distorted by his injuries in a lisp. I was so afraid they would get up before I could call for help. They tried to kill me, Mom, and I don't have the strength to fight them anymore. Alina quickly embraced him, hearing him yelp and feeling him quivering from the pain caused by even such a gentle touch. My baby, my poor baby. Who did this to you? The two of them started to cry at the same time. Alina because she was scared to death. Lith because while in his mother's embrace, he could finally allow himself to vent all his rage and fears. Orpal. It's all Orpal's fault. These are all his friends. They even told me their plan when they thought I was about to die. Alina was shocked by those words, refusing to believe such a terrible thing. But those 5 really were Orpal's closest friends. One of them, Breezel, was even holding his grandfather's wooden stick, and it was stained with blood. Alina looked at Lith's head, easily spotting the bruises and cuts shake like the cane. Why would they assault you? And how could they possibly know that today Celia was out of town? Alina thought out loud. Among all the sobbing and crying, Lith was inwardly smiling. Feeding her facts was a last resort. It would have a much deeper impact if she put the pieces together by herself. Can't you heal yourself? Even a little bit? Alina's voice was full of worry. Her son's condition seemed dire. Lith was expecting this question. Now that I had the time to recover, I could, but I won't. Why? That answer made no sense to her. Alina started to worry that his injuries were affecting his mind, because when you and Dad decide what to do with Orpal, I want you to take a good look of what he did to me. Lith screamed, coughing a mouthful of blood from a wound he had reopened on purpose. Orpal always hated me, and he always will. No matter if I help you all, with chores or your health. He does not care how much game I bring to the table, money to our house. Nothing is ever enough for him, Lith kept screaming and sobbing. Am I such an awful son, such a terrible brother to deserve this? Lith hugged her with all of his strength, bawling his eyes out. Alina was at a loss for words, but only for a moment. She held her son tightly, raising him up from the ground and carrying him back home. Then, she brought the whole family to Celia's house to let them witness the scene with their own eyes. The matter was too serious. She could not hide it from her children. When Orpal saw Lith, he became pale as a ghost. Alina refused to call him by his name. And if Glares could kill, he was certain that she would make him leave the fields feet first. What the heck went wrong? Those morons knew the plan. They only had to rough him up and teach him respect and humility. Most importantly, force him to shut his mouth. Now my stupid parents will never let me hear the end of it. Spot, when he saw all the blood on the floor, with his friends still there and out cold, he felt his life falling apart. As soon as Alina let him do it, Ras embraced Lith before checking his conditions. After that, he looked around the room, easily recognizing the 5 culprits. Quote, Quay, Raina, go call their parents. Take Tista with you. I don't want her to hear what I am about to say. Ras was even paler than Orpal, clenching his fists so hard that they started to bleed. Alina had whispered to him only 3 words after coming back with Lith. Orpal did it. And in the beginning, he had refused to believe that one of his beloved children could do something like that, but the truth appeared so horrifyingly simple to his eyes. No one outside of the family knew that Lith worked for Celia. No one else could possibly know that exactly on that day and time, Lith would be left alone in Celia's house. But the most painful and irrefutable truth was that no one but Orpal could possibly resent Lith so much. He barely knew anyone outside of his family and their closest friends. Lith had always worked so hard to help all of them, especially Tista, that he never had the time to make friends or enemies. Rut felt those thoughts ripping his heart out of his chest, but he had to know. Did you do it? Rade looked Orpal straight in the eyes. A terrible silence fell in the room, revealing the truth that Ras was trying so hard to deny, looking for a possible alternative explanation, but there wasn't any. How? How could you possibly do this to your brother? Tears were streaming from his eyes. Dad, I swear, it's not what you think. I can explain. Orpal's mind was desperately trying to find a plausible excuse. Is there anything to explain? Ras roared out of anger. Aren't those your friends? Yes, but it wasn't you who told them what to do. It wasn't you who planned how, when and where to ambush Lith. It wasn't because of your plan that he was almost beaten to death. Quote, in the God's name. How could you possibly explain all that? Because that wasn't the plan. They didn't listen to me, just like you. You never listen to what I say. You never let me have my way, always siding with Leech and the cripple. You are never on my side. Never. They got carried away. Ah, is that your explanation? Rai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you mean that ambushing and beating your brother, my son, perfectly fine as long as they do it with moderation? He raised his fist, tempted to give Orpal a taste of his own medicine, but Alina stopped him. Too much blood has already been shed today. Don't do it. You'd only harm yourself. He is beyond saving. Alina was crying too, but her face and tone were stone cold. She had already made up her mind. Bus. Araz was too heartbroken to stand anymore. He sat down on the nearest chair and wept. You are right, my love. I have lost count of the times I have tried to make him understand that respect is something that you must give before receiving it yourself. That we were his parents, not his friends. We are supposed to help our children understand their mistakes, not enable them. The gods know that I have tried to teach him that his siblings are not his servants, that a man's authority lies in the responsibilities he shoulders, not how strong he is. I know I have not been a perfect father, but I did the best that I could. I don't know what to do with him anymore. Alina, Dravas wiped his own tears, looking to his wife for support. I agree. Even now he doesn't show any remorse. He never loved his brother. He started to steal his food and calling him names even before Lith was able to walk. He is clearly unable to understand the enormity of what he did. I believe that if we allow this to continue, he will do it again. If not to Lith, Prista. I'm not going to let him do more harm to our family. She held Raz's hand tight, searching for the strength she needed. I think we should disown him, strip him of his name, and report him together with his accomplices for attempted murder to the village militia. Thanks, my love. Raz had no more tears to cry. His resolve was steeled, and his voice hardened. I don't think I had the strength in me to say it,